Lawmakers could invoke special LegCo powers to investigate troubled Shatin to Central Link. Tropical depression stays away from Hong Kong but still drenches the city. And airline employee sparks major security scare after stealing passenger plane in Seattle.
Good evening. Lawmakers across the political divide may join hands to invoke LegCo's special powers to investigate the scandal-ridden Shatin to Central Link. This after sinkages were recorded at 2 stations on the line, forcing the suspension of work yesterday on the Wan Chai section. Christy Leung has our top story.
Excavation machines lying idle. Workers could still be seen at the site of the exhibition center station despite an order from the Highways Department to stop the digging works. The order came after the department found subsidences at multiple monitoring points on site, which exceeded acceptable levels. However, neither the government nor the MTRC gave further details on the subsidence levels and the locations of these sinkages.
The Exhibition Center station is one of the 10 stations on the Shatin to Central Link. That's a new line which the MTR expects to see 1 million passenger trips every day.
It remains unclear whether the suspension of work will delay the opening of the new link. As more problems are unfurled along the line, Pan Democrats think the newly formed Independent Commission of Inquiry is insufficient as it only probes problems at Hong Kong Station. They plan to invoke the Powers and Privileges Ordinance to set up a select committee to press for more answers from the MTRC.
We are not only talking about the problems of Hong Kong Station. We are talking about the whole link. We are talking about different stations or even the tunnel. And we are also talking about very important public safety.
A similar motion tabled in June was voted down due to insufficient support from the pro-establishment camp, but it doesn't rule out supporting the motion this time.
As we said before, the PMP can be used in need. In case we find that the staff of the MTR corporate trying to hide up any facts, any information we want to disclose, but the MTR corporate reject, and we should use PMP.
Chen urged the MTRC to disclose more information to allay public concerns instead of hiding the facts. Christy Leung, TVB News.
A standby signal number 1 is still in effect, but in Macau, the signal number 3 was issued this morning, with authorities warning of possible storm surges. Caleb Leung has details.
It was a day of heavy rain across the territory as the standby signal number 1 remained in force. The amber rainstorm warning was issued at 7:15 this morning and was up until around noon. More than 70 millimeters of rainfall was recorded within an hour in certain areas, including Kwai Tsing, Tsuen Wan, and Sham Shui Po. As a nearby tropical depression is forecast to move slowly, the number 1 signal is expected to remain in force for a while. The public should also expect wet weather over the next few days.
The rain bands associated with the tropical depression are expected to bring occasional showers and squalls to the territory in the next couple of days. For tonight and tomorrow, the weather will be cloudy with occasional squally showers and a few thunderstorms.
Meanwhile, over in Macau, the authorities issued the tropical cyclone signal number 3 this morning. The signal is expected to remain in effect for a period of time, while the chance of issuing the number 8 signal is slim. The thunderstorm warning and the blue storm surge warning are also still in force, and flooding may occur in the inner harbor area. Motorcyclists are advised to travel between the Macau Peninsula and Taipa Island using the motorcycle lane on Saipan Bridge. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
To the U.S. city of Seattle, where an airline employee stole a plane and took it on a joyride. The thief did stunts in the air as military aircraft chased him right before he crashed the plane in a ball of fire.
What the hell?
Authorities believe the bizarre plane heist was carried out by a suicidal ground service agent employed by Horizon Air. His job is to direct aircraft for takeoff and gate approaches at SeaTac International Airport. The 29-year-old man stole a Horizon Air turboprop plane. While it seats 76 passengers, there were no travelers inside at the time. Flights out of SeaTac, the largest commercial airport in the Pacific Northwest, were temporarily grounded during the drama. As a precaution, the military scrambled 2 F-15 fighter jets. Typical orders are to shoot it down if there is any indication this is a terror attack in progress. Within a few minutes, the F-15 pilots were seen chasing after the plane thief. That's when witnesses video captured the Horizon Air Q400 doing large loops and other dangerous maneuvers as the sun set on the Puget Sound. Moments later, the plane crashed in a ball of smoke and flames.
Earlier this evening, there was a very small plane, a small commercial plane, 2 props, that crashed into Ketron Island, which is a very short distance offshore here in Puget Sound. There was no indication that he did this to threaten anybody. There's no indication of any kind of terrorist link or anything like that. Apparently he was in contact with the tower while he was flying.
In that contact, air traffic controllers were heard pleading with the man they called Rich to land the plane. The rogue pilot told them he is just a broken guy with a few screws loose. Upon seeing military planes chasing him down, the thief said, "Oh man, those guys will rough me up if I try to land." Then he's heard saying, "This is probably jail time for life." His last words were, "I've got a lot of people that care about me. It's going to disappoint them to hear that I did this." Authorities believe the man knew full well he was going out with a bang.
The person who stole it was either doing something as a kind of a lark, or perhaps he was trying to harm himself.
A major investigation is now underway to determine security lapses that enabled the employee to steal a plane and take off from a major international airport.
A jury in San Francisco has ordered agribusiness giant Monsanto to pay $289 million to a former school groundskeeper who's dying of cancer. It determined that Monsanto's popular weed killer Roundup contributed to Dwayne Johnson's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Jurors said the company should have provided a label warning of the potential health hazard. Johnson sprayed large quantities of the product from a 50-gallon tank and would sometimes be covered in the weed killer. He developed cancer in 2014 at the age of 42. He was awarded $250 million in punitive damages and $39 million in compensatory damages. Johnson's lawsuit was the first of hundreds filed in state and federal courts to go to trial.
Firefighters in Southern California are struggling to contain wildfires still raging out of control. As the winds pick up, firefighters on the ground are working hard to prevent flames from spreading into communities with homes. From the air, planes are dropping water and fire retardant around the clock. After battling a total of 20 blazes for 2 weeks, Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency for Orange and Riverside counties. One man has been charged with deliberately starting the blaze they call the Holy Fire.
Financial shockwave has ripped through Turkey after U.S. President Donald Trump escalated a feud with his NATO ally by doubling tariffs on steel and aluminum. It sparked a widespread sell-off of global stocks as the Turkish lira tumbled due to concerns over the country's economy. Alan Booknia reports.
Ankara's rift with Washington deepened this week over the trial in Turkey of an American pastor who was charged with espionage linked to a failed coup attempt 2 years ago. The U.S. responded by slapping sanctions on Turkey and threatened more. Turkish officials held talks in Washington this week, but failed to resolve the spat. Donald Trump then announced aluminum tariffs would be doubled to 20% and steel to 50%. The United States is the biggest destination for Turkish steel, accounting for 11% of the country's export volume. The Turkish lira plunged 14% in 1 day after the announcement, the biggest one-day fall since the 2001 financial crisis in Turkey. The currency is down 41% since the beginning of the year. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan told a rally, "If there is anyone who has dollars, euros, or gold under their pillows, they should exchange it for liras," calling it a nationalistic domestic battle in response to those waging economic war. The currency drop is a gauge of investor fear over a country that's had years of high debt, international concern over Erdogan's push to amass more power, and the souring relations with allies such as the U.S. Erdogan tried to reassure rallygoers of Turkey's economic health and hailed growing economic ties with Russia. He said he'd been speaking with President Vladimir Putin, and up to 6 million Russian tourists are expected to visit Turkey this year. The deepening economic crisis dragged down global bank shares and triggered concerns that it could spread to other economies. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped almost 200 points, or 0.77%, to close at 25,315. Alan Brooknia, TVB News.
And coming up after the break, KMB officials discuss ways to improve safety in committee hearing on local bus services. Mass protests in Romania.
Welcome back to TVB News. The head of Kowloon Motor Bus has submitted a proposal for safer driving following the deadly Taipo accident this year. As Kana Chu reports, a review committee also heard today the accident may have exacerbated a shortage of drivers at KMB.
Another day of hearings for the Independent Review Committee looking at Hong Kong's franchised bus services. Kowloon Motor Bus Company Chairman Norman Leung submitted a speed limit action plan to the committee, proposed by the company's former head of safety and service quality Gary Wong in 2014. Proposed recommendations include issuing bus drivers with speed limit cards as a safety reminder for 29 sharp bends across the territory. The proposal never went through as the company's former operations director Owen Eckford didn't see the need to issue the card. The committee said it needs time to review the proposal, and it was only submitted today. The committee's appointed lawyer Peter Duncan then asked whether KMB's labor shortage had gotten worse following the Taipo accident. Managing Director Roger Lee replied the answer was yes. He noted the company would improve employee welfare by enhancing depot facilities with barbering service and gym rooms. Operations Director Lan King Wong added that KMB would leverage bus captains' 8-point pay scale to 20, meaning drivers potentially can get a further increase in salary. In February, a Route 872 KMB bus flipped over on Taipo Road. The accident, one of Hong Kong's deadliest, left 19 people dead and 65 others injured. The review committee was set up a month later to examine the operation and management of local bus franchises. Kana Chu, TVB News.
A suspected $1 million loan scam has been uncovered by police. Officers seized stacks of alleged forged documents. They include ID cards, monthly statements, and proof of salary. The syndicate was suspected of stealing third-party personal information to obtain loans from banks and financial institutions. The case is said to involve a few hundred borrowings worth $1.5 million. An estimated 20 banks and financial firms are affected. Police believe the syndicate has been operating for more than a year. 6 men and 4 women, aged 24 to 41, including the mastermind, were arrested.
The University of Hong Kong is raising eyebrows over admissions into its medical program. Sharon Tang reports more than half of the students admitted this year are non-JUPAS candidates, or students who have taken exams other than the local HKDSE.
For those who want to study medicine, HKU and the Chinese University of Hong Kong are 2 local institutions that provide related degrees through government subsidies. The Joint University Program's Admissions System, or JUPAS, is the main route of application for those who set the HKDSE in secondary school. Non-JUPAS paths of entry include sitting the International Baccalaureate or the General Certificate of Education. In 2013, the Dean of HKU's Faculty of Medicine vowed to reserve at least 70% of places for JUPAS applicants. Did he live up to his promise? Yes, he did, except for this year. More than 50% were dominated by non-JUPAS applicants. And that has sparked concerns regarding fairness and equality. This medical student from HKU says he feels like non-JUPAS students have easier access to the subject. But this nursing student says those who are capable deserve a place. Meanwhile, education sector lawmaker Ip Kin Yun stressed that many candidates within JUPAS are grassroots students. He added that institutions that provide popular and competitive programs like the Bachelor of Medicine should ensure equality for aspiring candidates from different social classes. He urged HKU to explain why was there a sudden drop in the proportion of JUPAS entrants this year. So far, the university said it will not reply to any questions on admissions. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Overseas again, and tens of thousands of Romanians from all across Europe flocked to an anti-government protest in Bucharest. The demonstration was organized by expats. They urged the left-wing government to resign and called for early elections. Critics say the country has lost ground in fighting corruption since the Social Democratic Party assumed power back in 2016. There were some scuffles with riot police when some protesters tried to break through a police line guarding government offices. Some 200 people received medical treatment. An estimated 3 million Romanians live abroad. Some say they left because of corruption, low wages, and a lack of opportunities.
The head of the United Nations has chosen former Chilean President Michelle Bachelet as the next human rights chief in a move the U.S. and other opponents are slamming.
At home, she has known the heights and the depths as the first woman to serve as the country's president, but also as a survivor of brutality by the authorities targeting her and her family many decades ago. Hatred and inequality are on the rise. Respect for international humanitarian and human rights law is on the decline.
It is incumbent on the Secretary General's choice, Ms. Bachelet, to avoid the failures of the UN human rights system in the past, in Venezuela and Cuba in particular. The UN system has failed to adequately address major human rights crises in Iran, North Korea, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and elsewhere.
However, representatives from Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela hit back. They accused the U.S. of its own human rights violations. They cited separating migrant children from their parents, causing deaths by bombs, drone wars, and police brutality.
An 18th century church widely regarded as a marvel of Russia's wooden architecture was destroyed by fire. The blaze at the Dormition Church in Russia's northwest erupted after a group of tourists visited the building. Local officials said fire safety rules may have been violated, but they wouldn't rule out arson. The fire quickly engulfed the church. Firefighters arrived within minutes but were unable to save it. The church was built back in 1774 on the shore of Lake Onega. Local authorities have promised to build a replica. And that's our news.
Good night.